So you play for Larry Brown. You said Bill Self kind of helped you get your start in coaching, bringing you onto that Kansas staff. You also played in Phoenix for Danny Ainge for a few years. If you had to be quarantined with one of those three guys for a month, who are you picking and why? If you have to spend a month straight in the same house with one of those three.
Bill Self.
On today's episode of Titus and Tate, we will be talking to Wake Forest head basketball coach, Kansas legend, Los Angeles Clippers legend, Danny Manning Tate. He joined us for about 30 minutes in his home in Winston-Salem. I almost said Wake Forest. It really, really is frustrating that Wake Forest is not in Wake Forest. I can't stress.
Well, yeah, for people that don't know, Wake Forest is in Winston-Salem, but Wake Forest, North Carolina exists, and that's where it was originally based, but now it's a seminary. So now he's in Winston-Salem. And again, Danny Manning, we didn't ask him about the Carolina Cougars, but we asked him about everything else. And yeah, it was very, very, very fun time with Danny Manning.
Great interview with him, talking to him about the Danny and the Miracles 88 season that yeah, he surprised me with his thoughts on that. We call that a teaser in the business, Tate. I'm not going to say what surprised me. People are going to have to listen to tune in. We're also today we're gonna break down our top five. What's our top five list today, Tate?
Our top five list is the top five title teams that shouldn't have been title teams based on the fact that the other team that they beat should have been the title team.
Yeah, just like basically the top five. These are the teams. These are the title games that would have been more fun if the other team would have won. Yes. Like we wish the other team would have won because it would have made for a more fun outcome. But sometimes in life, the most fun thing doesn't happen, Tate. That's what we've learned. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about some of this Fox Sports, the fan bracket that's unfolding in front of our very eyes. Mitt Romney's getting involved, Tate.
Yes, that's how you know. That's how you know the Sweet 16 is on. Is if Mitt Romney's retweeting something and the Sweet 16 is here, it's officially madness. And he actually helped BYU and the Cougars. They move on to the Sweet 16.
Let's get to this Fox Sports Ultimate Fan Bracket that these games that are going on, Tate. We have Murray State has now pulled the upsets of all upset. A 13 seed is now playing UNC in the Sweet 16 of this. If you're new to the program and have no idea what we're talking about, our frame of reference, Fox is putting on the tournament on Twitter where you just basically vote for matchups to figure out who the best fan base is. Winner gets a billboard in your rival school or in near your rival's campus that basically says we're better than you. We are now down to the Sweet 16, Tate. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. The voting for the second round ended, so we have our Sweet 16 set. Murray State will be taking on your North Carolina Tar Heels, who kind of pulled an upset that's not really an upset by beating NC State. A lot of people, myself included, had NC State circled in that one, and the Tar Heels pulled it off. What else is standing out to us? UMBC has moved on to the Sweet. They took down Maryland after beating Virginia. Is there anything else we need to talk about here?
I was going to say, I think like the matchups that we've gotten to, one of the things we pointed to was NC State, North Carolina. That was something that came down to the wire, quote unquote. And then we got Kobe White and Nazir Little and the young North Carolina kids putting it out to the world. They get the votes. They get they clear that. They get 60% vote, move on. That was exciting. But we also talk about the fact that Ohio State is playing Michigan in the Sweet 16. Michigan's getting a lot of early votes right now. Maybe Rob Pelinka will retweet this at some point for all the Michigan fans.
Well, the scary thing.
Are you worried?
I am worried, and I'm gonna tell you why. Michigan wins nothing. They never win anything. It's been a long time since Michigan fans have ever won anything of any substance whatsoever.
The Sugar Bowl, the 2012 Sugar Bowl, was the last time. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think they found themselves. They see this as an opportunity to finally win something, and especially beat Ohio State at something. So yeah, I'm worried because this is going to matter a lot more to them than it does to us. Because like if you're trying to rally Ohio State fans to say like, hey, we have to go beat Michigan again, they're like, again? I mean, like, how many, for God's sakes, how many times can we beat Michigan in 1 year? Like, this is I'm exhausted. So I think I'm worried about that, but I don't know. We're a second half team. We've always been a second half team, Tate. I think Michigan's jumped out to an early lead here, but I'm not sweating it too much. Oregon is holding it down for the West Coast. It's Oregon and BYU. That stands out to me. I thought Oregon was going to lose to Auburn in the first round. They stormed back. They beat Auburn. They just beat the 2-seed Oklahoma. They will now be playing Purdue, who I think I have Purdue in my Final Four. So I think Purdue's in a good spot there. But yeah, I don't know. Dayton and BYU is the matchup, though. You gotta look at, Tate. Dayton beat Wisconsin after beating Iowa. So two Big Ten teams knocked out by Dayton. BYU just beat Michigan State, as we said. Mitt Romney retweets something at the buzzer, basically.
Yes.
Both of those matchups, the BYU Michigan State matchup and the Dayton Wisconsin matchup, were basically 50-50 with like 30 minutes left, and then Dayton and BYU both stole them at the end. I feel like that's a matchup that's going to garner like 5 million votes and it's going to be taken very seriously. And it feels like whoever wins that's going to win the whole thing. That's kind of where we've arrived with this.
It does feel like if you're a team like Dayton and you've had to get all these fans together to make these votes and they're keeping up with it over the timeline, because there's one thing just to go online and just vote, and just leave it be and just see what happens. There was a lot of people that went on early as State fans that I know that voted for State and they're like, haha, like sent me screenshots. We're up, 57 to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's over. It's a wrap. And then they didn't check 2 days later. And of course they lost. And I think the Dayton fans are, you know what I mean? Like they are just completely locked in the entire time. Same with the BYU fans. So like to have both those, if it is 50-50, like you said, as we get down to the dwindling hours, they will recruit people to go online and to vote, which means that we have a chance for like American Idol numbers. You know what I mean? This is a blowout. Potentially, this is Ruben Sutter
versus Clay Aiken. That's what I was about to say.
It's going to be wild. And for some reason, I think Dayton is Ruben Studdard, and I think they have a real shot at this. And,
so you're saying BYU is Clay Aiken? That's weird how we arrived at those identities for those schools. That's interesting how that shook out. I think Dayton is probably going to it, but it is like I think it comes down to timing. I think it's like when do you throw the switch, hit the button for the last push. When does Mitt Romney come in and retweet? If Mitt Romney retweets immediately, I don't know if it matters as much, but he the very last push of like, everybody go vote for this. I don't know. It's fascinating. So go check it out at CBB on Fox is where all these polls are taking place. Like I said, the winner of this whole thing we're getting a billboard for you in your rival's campus. What is the trolling vote in the sense of like voting against somebody now? Because Duke's out. Would it be Kentucky, do you think? Like, is there a team that people are going to rally against and say, like, let's vote this team out, that an upset might happen?
Yes.
Kentucky, right?
It's North Carolina. I feel like
North Carolina would be a good pick, too.
I feel like North Carolina and Murray State, there's a real chance for an upset there, just for the same thing you're saying with Duke, where people are like, oh, the 13 seed, let's go ahead and get this upset done. I can see that happen. I can see Kansas having something like that happen as well. I mean, it's basically the Blue Bloods. You have to
Blue Bloods, definitely Blue Bloods. But it's basically like Murray State and UMBC in terms of trolling the vote to make the winner. If we're looking at like the Peyton Hillis Madden cover situation, it's going to have to be one of those two. And yeah, Murray State's an interesting one. I don't know how they're doing it, but congrats to them. They're figuring it. Maybe it's all the Kentucky fans are voting for Murray State to beat UNC. Yeah, and they're trying to double dip.
That's what I mean. There's
Murray
a lot of
State,
there's a lot of people that aren't even voting for their school. They haven't even looked at that side of the bracket. They're just like, I want to find the team I hate. Like Michigan fans were probably beforehand, whoever Ohio State is playing, like, I'm just going to vote for Louisville.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did that with Lehigh. It's a lot of people are getting upset about this, like, because of the rigging of the votes, in the sense that like people will vote against teams they don't like, but that's part of the game. This is Twitter.
Yeah. Don't get, listen, there's real life stuff going on in the world. Don't get upset about this. Get upset about the stuff that actually matters in this world, such as the horse contest that ESPN put on. Get upset about that. All right, moving on. Let's get to it. Let's do our top five, our starting five of the day. These have become fun. I've really enjoyed these. Last week we did the last show on Friday. We did we build our teams using guys from. You can only use one guy from each conference. I was slowly losing my mind as the draft was unfolding because I had a strategy going in and I blew it. So go back and listen to that if you want. We had some fun. People were sending in responses with their own teams, and people were putting together some fun teams. So I like that idea. I'm growing to like these ideas we're doing. So today we are doing the top 5 title games won by the wrong team. And what constitutes the wrong team? It's not necessarily that we're saying the better team didn't win. We're not doing that move where it's like the better team lost tonight. The refs screwed this team. They should have won, whatever. We're just saying like the storyline, what have you. It would have been more fun had the losing team won, in our opinion. And this is, we should preface it as always, Tate. This is our opinion. We're not speaking for all of America. I'm just speaking for myself. So
yeah, these are not the official rankings. These are not. This is not official. I think that's what I've learned as I've gone through all the lists. As long as it doesn't say the official or like you cannot argue this top 10 episodes of Seinfeld,
and it's not even close. You gotta, Where you say an opinion, you say it, it's not even close.
Yeah, and then the opinion is like kind of like really like secular and like very nuanced and like very specific, and you're like, what do you mean? It's
Yellow
not
starbursts are the best starbursts, and it's not even close. And you're like,
yes.
what? Why
You're
would
like,
you? Let's go. Let's work backwards like we always do. Number 5. I'll let you go first. The floor is yours. What title game did the college basketball gods get wrong?
okay, easy enough. And this is probably number 5 on my list because I think it's so self-explanatory, and it's because of one name, and that's the Cardiac Pack. And in 1983, a team that won the ACC tournament just to get in the field decided to go on a ridiculous run where they basically became the class of the ACC in a year where the ACC had Ralph Sampson, Michael Jordan, and all of these other great, basketball players in the ACC at the time. Somehow a team with Sidney Lowe, Lorenzo Charles, and Jim Valvano going insane at the end. We all imagine him running around. They beat Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma, a team that I think they have like a black mark on the record because of this game, because they lost on an air ball that turned into an alley-oop. And if I were to rewrite history, I know it was great that Jimmy V had this moment. I think it's a great story as far as the Cardiac Pack and winning the tournament. Then it led to what we saw with Kimba in the future in 2010 or 2011. So all that's I don't want to lose that, but I also feel like Houston lost a lot of credibility by losing that game. And if they win that national championship, we look back at Houston and that whole run with a different purview where we're like Akeem and Clyde. And that's like one of the greatest dynasties in college basketball.
Yeah.
It's just happened. We lost that, which I think hurts. Which is why I think that if we could reverse it, maybe Houston wins.
So you're not saying NC State should have lost as much as you're saying Houston deserved to win.
Houston earned a title. Like they did not get a title during this window of time, and that hurts their reputation and in the future, even though it shouldn't, because we know that they were the better team.
And then all those years later, Bryce Alford has the exact same shot, kind of, and it's called goaltending when he airballs and leaves it short against SMU.
Yes, an airball.
But it was not goaltending. NC State. It shouldn't have been goaltending. It's not. It's obviously not goaltending. But yeah.
It wasn't. It wasn't. I just want to say this: 4 of their 6 victories, 2 points or less. I mean, come on. Like
NC State.
Yeah,
think about like Houston. How much would be different if NC State doesn't win that? If NC State, like the inferiority complex is even stronger.
Oh my goodness.
Do we care about Jimmy V? Like, I mean, I think we still care because he still was like tight with Dickie V and Coach K, and like he still was sort of had his persona himself. That I think, when his cancer diagnosis hits and he goes to the SBs and all that, like you could still see it playing out. But like, does it resonate as much if he's not a title-winning coach that everyone remembers running out onto the floor with his arms up and the miracle that NC State won it all and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. That's interesting. It's interesting that you're taking away all that inspiration, the Jimmy V, the speech, the money that's been raised by the V Foundation, that you're trying to take all that away from society. Tate, very interesting pick that you want to undo all of that.
Yes, I'm taking all that away just so Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon can say we were on a dynasty team. Yes, strip all that away.
Strip it all. It's not worth it.
ESPN has lost all of its money for college basketball, but yes, for the sake of Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon, who are all fine, let's do that. All right, that's number 5 on my list.
All right, number 5 on my list is, I think this is what started the whole idea of doing this, is because I think I casually mentioned the wrong team won this title game, and then from there we got the idea to actually power rank these. Mine is the 2005 title game, North Carolina, Illinois. Again, sort of the same thing, like as you, where I'm not really discrediting North Carolina as much, because I think if this was like, say, 2009 North Carolina or 2017 North Carolina, I would have this much, much higher. But Carolina winning in 05 was kind of a cool story because Roy finally got over the hump and got his title. Carolina, it had been 12 years since you guys won a title, and the road since Dean had left was a little rocky, and to have it like kind of stabilized by this was kind of cool. It was interesting. But the Illinois team not winning the title is an all-time travesty. That team was so fun. That team was so good. And every time you look back on it, it's just like, I think, was it D Brown that kind of put something out on Twitter that
recently?
Yeah, where he put out like it was a shot of him in the locker room with his head down after the game, and he's like, I still can't believe we didn't pull this off or something. My bad, Illinois or Illini Nation or something like that.
75-70.
It was if Illinois wins that, it is one of the great they're still one of the great all-time teams, but that team was so fun that like the Big Ten needed it, Illinois needed it. I don't know. So I'm putting that at number 5 because I think if that goes differently, the world is a different place. And yeah, maybe, yeah, I don't know. That's it. That's all I got, Tate.
I understand that. That North Carolina team for me is obviously like the redemption run for the Matt Doherty years. And as a North Carolina fan, it was a totally different experience because North Carolina had been so far away from the national conversation for so long that when they came back, we felt like we were the underdogs. But again, I think like you said, America and the Midwest and the Big Ten and everyone obviously wanted Illinois and that team to succeed. And I'll be quite honest with you, that Illinois team, when they beat Arizona, I was praying that North Carolina would not have to play Illinois because I felt like they were a team of destiny.
And the title game taking place in St. Louis, the Arizona game leading into it, it just felt like the stars were aligned and Illinois was supposed to win, and this was supposed to be just I don't know, a crowning moment for the Big Ten, and it was not, and it's been a long road back for the entire conference, as we'll see as my list continues to unfold here. Okay, that's my number 5 pick. What's your number 4?
My number 4 pick is easy. He's going to join us later on in the broadcast. And again, the reason I say this is because they had 11 losses. I don't think that they were necessarily the best team in the tournament in 1988. I think they had also lost to Oklahoma, the team that they beat twice. Or Oklahoma beat them twice during the regular season. And they lost to them in the title game. One of my rules is, having to play a team 3 times, especially when you beat a team twice, and then have to play them in the national championship game. That seems like a little unfair to me as far as the draw itself. I mean, I know Kansas got lucky. I think Murray State had a big upset that year as a 14 seed. Maybe I'm getting this in the ultimate fan bracket confused, but I'm pretty sure Murray State upset whoever the number 1 overall seed was. You can fact check me on that. But yeah, I was just saying, like, it's just a bad draw to have to play a team that's in your conference in the title game. They play Oklahoma. They beat Oklahoma. Danny Manning takes nothing away from him, but if they win that game, I think maybe Larry Brown's wow, I mean, I don't even know.
What are you gonna say, that he maybe sticks around a little longer, like he doesn't become a coach that leads?
I don't even know, because like there was the whole investigation type. I don't know how it plays out, because like if they lose, maybe that how the NCAA, maybe like none of that comes to the full conversation. Like, maybe he's there a little bit longer. I don't know, but I will just say this: having to play a team that you beat twice, that's unfair. And they were 11 losses, so I would just say, hey, maybe they shouldn't have won that game, 1988 Kansas.
Okay, that's a good pick. Kansas, that year they lost, and I looked this up to prepare for our interview with Coach Manning here in a second. Kansas lost to Duke, Kansas State, and Oklahoma in like the final month of the regular season, or they lost to Kansas State in the Big 8 tournament. And that's how they got knocked out. So they lose to those 3, and then the last 3 teams they beat on that tournament run, they beat Kansas State in this Elite 8. They beat Duke in the Final Four, and then they beat Oklahoma in the title game. So, like, all 3 teams, the last 3 games they won were all against teams that had just beat them like a month prior. They all got it was sort of a revenge tour, is what I'm saying, Tate. So it was you're subscribing to the theory that it's hard to beat teams multiple times.
I'm just saying it's a bad draw. It's a bad draw,
bad matchup,
bad matchup.
Bad matchup.
So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They may have been a better team, but they played a better player. Danny Manning won.
All right. My number 4 is another Big Ten team losing to another ACC team in a title game. I'm going with 2015, Duke beating Wisconsin. Looking back, like the Wisconsin team, they go to the Final Four in 2014 with Frank Kaminsky, Sam Decker, and they basically bring all those guys back. I forget who was the one. Who's the guy that they lost? They didn't lose Gosser, right? Did they lose Ben Brust? Was it from 2014 to 15? They basically lost like one of those the white buzzcut guards. But they brought back like basically
Brust.
Yeah, I think it was Brust too. They basically bring back everybody the next year. And it seems like it's happening. They play Wisconsin, or they play Arizona again in the Elite 8. They again beat Arizona. They're going up against Kentucky, the best team of all time. We don't know yet. 38-0. They beat Kentucky. Kentucky fans would say that they got some help from the refs. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but crazy upset. I was at that game, Tate. I'm in the arena. Wisconsin fans are going nuts. They can't believe it. It's going to happen. Wisconsin is actually going to win a national championship. Wisconsin, as an entire university, a sports university, football and basketball, has always been the school that's good enough to beat the school that actually wins the title. That is like always their thing. Is they're like the B- or the A- B+ program that can knock off anybody, but they can never do it themselves. And oh my God, are they finally going to do it? All they have to do is beat this Duke team. that they had lost to.
Gone. Yeah.
That they had lost to. Talking about your Kansas thing, they had lost to Duke earlier in the year at home. It was like, surely they're not going to lose now. They're going to watch the tape, learn what they did wrong on the first game, and it's gone, and they lose. And it's devastating. Not because I'm trying not to do the thing where it's like I wish this was different just because Duke won. Like, because I actually did really like that Duke team, but looking back, like as more time has gone on, that Tyus Jones basically got Jahlil Okafor and Justice Winslow to play out of their minds for 3 weeks and care greatly about basketball. It's staggering. Just if you're talking about like college basketball gods, Wisconsin deserved to win that game, but that's not how it always works. It doesn't matter. Sometimes the gods are cruel, and Tyus Jones, it's a big three, and Duke wins yet again.
I was going to say, and also like, that's a perfect example. We talked about bad draw. That's a good draw. Like if you're Duke, you get to have the two best teams in the tournament play each other in the other side of the bracket in the Final Four. You know, the undefeated Kentucky team that probably should have won that year loses to Wisconsin, who was probably the hottest, best team at the time. Then they play Duke. They're coming off the emotional high of beating Kentucky. It's just a bad draw. It's a good draw for Duke. Bad draw.
I will say Duke was definitely good enough to win. I don't think that's like this was not an instance of like like I said, the better team lost. Duke was probably better than Wisconsin. I mean, they beat them twice that year. But like Mikal Bridges said on our last show, Tate, that 2015, the Final Four, those three teams, all three of them are as good as any team we've seen in college basketball in the last 10 plus years. You know, all three of them are title teams, but only one can win, and it wasn't Wisconsin, and that's a bummer for a program that's always just right there. Just right there.
Oh, it's such a bummer.
It's gone.
And it's gone. You hate to see it. The Big Ten yet again. All right, number 3 for me. This is going to hurt some people's feelings, and I know exactly who it's going to hurt, but it has to be said. And it's honestly, it should be my number 1 team as far as like the different revisionist history of time, but it's the 1985 Villanova Wildcats.
Ooh.
I know a lot of people are going to be upset about this because Georgetown, obviously in this game, 66-64. Patrick Ewing that year, they were the number 1 team, preseason number 1 team in the country. They were 35-3. He won every single award. Patrick Ewing literally won every single award you could possibly win. I think he won like the Eastman or it was like the other player. It's like the Naismith, the Wooden, and the Eastman award. He won that award. He won everything. And this, like they had beaten Villanova during the regular season. Like it was just all set up for Georgetown to have this back-to-back moment. Like this team, they had like Michael Jackson on their team, and people are like, Michael Jackson, not that Michael Jackson, but they had the other Michael Jackson.
But what if it was? That would have been something.
But what if it was? That would have been crazy. I think like they had 4 guys get drafted in the first 3 rounds. I think it was who was the other one? Reggie Williams,
Sleepy Floyd. He was on the.
I think he was on the.
Was he gone by then?
He was gone by then, but it's Bill Martin.
Okay.
I was like, it's a basic name. Anyways, they were gonna win. This was the year, right? They're gonna get back-to-back titles. Patrick Ewing's gonna get like the guaranteed number 1 pick. He's gonna go to New York. He's gonna get another title. Everything was set up for this, and then they played Mark Titus on April Fool's Day.
I didn't know that.
They played on April Fool's Day. They played Villanova, a conference rival, Raleigh, Massachusetts. They knew this Georgetown team. They knew how to beat them. They had the scouting report. And then they shot 9 from 10 from the field in the second half. They shot 79% as a team, Villanova did in this game. So, like, they basically did everything that was statistically impossible, you would say, going into the game. They win by only 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
They keep Patrick Ewing from having this beautiful back-to-back run. And in my mind, if that happens, Pat Ewing, sometimes he gets viewed as like not a winner because of the NBA career. Yeah. I think if he does the back-to-back and after this 85 year then goes number 1, we all remember it's like one of the best seasons individually in college basketball history. Instead, they lose to Villanova. It's a big upset moment. And all we talk about is that Villanova team and not that 85 Georgetown team.
That's interesting. That's a good point. Patrick Ewing, what would his legacy be? Would that be enough to, shed the...
Could that change everything? Like the puppy dog, like sad eyes, like, oh, what could have been?
He always had that perception that he was just sort of a doofus staring off into the distance, and as Michael Jordan dunks on him. It's kind of like like Jordan was the savage, and Ewing was just like Leonard Hamilton being asked by Dana Jacobson. He's like, huh? Yeah, what's going on? Like that was always the perception with Patrick Ewing. But if he wins back-to-back titles, that's a great point, Tate.
Yeah, number 3,
one of the most perfect national title game ever played by the 85 Villanova Wildcats. I think you're right, though. I think you're going to upset some people with that one.
Yeah, they're going to be very upset. I know exactly who's going to be upset.
Your list so far is basically you do not like the underdogs. You do not like the fluky, like this. You don't like the teams that were low seeds. that went on their runs, and you
I
hate those teams. You hate
I
Sister Jean. Is this a Sister Jean situation?
Yeah, yeah. It's not that I hate them. It's just like at the end of the day, the other team deserved it, and we
Yeah,
all know that, like
yeah,
Houston deserved it, Georgetown deserved it, and it wouldn't have been as fun, obviously, because it's like, oh, of course. But
yeah.
if you look at like the annals of history, maybe it's just written differently.
My number 3 pick is the 1998 title game where Kentucky beat Utah by 8, I believe. Um,
Mm,
there are a few reasons I have this one number 3. Honestly, if you take all the bias out, I might have this at number 1, but my other two are kind of a little too close to home, so I probably have them both for that reason. But Kentucky beats Utah, Tate, 2 NCAA tournaments in a row heading into this game. Utah
mm,
loses in the Elite Eight in 97 to Kentucky. They lose in the Sweet 16 to 96 to Kentucky. They're up 10 at half on
mhm,
Kentucky. I remember this is the only national title game in my life that I fell asleep during because Utah was dominating so much. Let's see, I was almost 11 years old. I was 10 years old at the time watching this game. I fall asleep at halftime. I assume that Utah is going to run away with it. I wake up
mhm.
in the second half and Kentucky has the lead. And I asked my dad, "What the hell happened? Why did you not wake me up?" Um, it felt like if we go back in time and give Rick Majerus his title, Tate, that is
Mhm.
such a better story. And listen, I'm glad Tubby got it. Nothing against Tubby Smith. But this is 2 years removed from Kentucky winning the '96 title with one of the best teams of all time.
Mhm.
Uh, Kentucky wins at 96. In 97, they lose to Arizona in the title game. This is their third title game appearance in a row. This is if Kentucky loses this game, there's not a Kentucky fan alive that's like, I mean, of course they would rather win the title, but none of them none of them would put this game on this list where they're like, man, that team was one of my favorites. They deserve to win.
Mhm.
Like, man, I'm so heartbroken for those guys, whatever. I mean, their best player was Jeff Shepard. And Jeff Shepard's a good player, but like, does anybody care about Jeff Shepard outside of Kentucky, Tate? The answer is no. And that was the team that took down a Utah team that Keith Van Horn had left the year before. He wasn't on this Utah team.
Mhm.
I sometimes I conflate that in my mind and remember Keith Van Horn being on this team, but he wasn't. You had Doliak and Andre Miller and some other guys you might remember, but I don't know. This felt like Utah. 2 years in a row, you lose to Kentucky. Now you get them in the title game. You're finally gonna get over the hump. Rick Majerus is finally gonna get his title. It's all going to happen. It's going to happen. I think was Utah on the WAC at the time,
Mhm.
or are they in the Mountain West? I don't
I think
remember.
Mountain. Yeah, it's either Whack or Mountain. I can't
But they were
remember.
like a tiny school on the West Coast, and Utah.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. The whole story would have been great, and instead Kentucky ruined everything and won their second title in 3 years.
Yeah, and it's for people that don't remember, they beat Utah, beat North Carolina, upset North Carolina, who I thought was the
Mm-hmm.
best team in 1998. And when Utah beat North Carolina in that game, I was full on to pull for Utah. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna upset North Carolina, I'm all in. I like Rick Jarris. I like this Utah team. Like they just got to beat Kentucky, and like you said, they were beating the brakes off of them early on. And I was so little, like I think I just watched the first half. I don't remember like what happened, but I remember
You
watching the
didn't
first.
realize they lost till I just told you right now.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
your mind they had won. You're like, wait, what?
I just remember
They
that
lost.
Utah team, like I had flipped such a switch, like 180 the other way. Like I hated them so much. Like I'm crying when North Carolina lost. Like I go from like I'm
Mhm.
6 or 7, like 6 years old, and I'm crying because North Carolina lost, and then I immediately was like, oh, we hate Kentucky. My dad was working at Bowling Green, Kentucky at the time. I was like, we don't like Kentucky, so it's like, all right, let's flip the switch. We're full Utah. And then they were beating them early. And I'm like, okay. And I always remember Andre Miller, and it's funny that you said Keith Van Horn because I was literally gonna say yeah, and Keith Van Horn. So I'm glad I didn't say that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that Utah team is like, I feel like if you did a 30 for 30 or some sort of history on that Utah era with Rick Majerus, people would go crazy
It would
because
be amazing.
yeah,
It would be so good. Cause like I said, this wasn't a case of like the stars aligned for Utah and they got hot and they were
yeah,
good for 1 year. I mean, they had a really, really good run and
they're a program.
they lost to Kentucky every single year. And you're like, man, this would be great if they can finally beat Kentucky and not only beat them, but beat them in the national championship. Oh my God. That
Hmm.
was how it was supposed to happen. This was supposed to be Duke beating UNLV, getting their revenge type thing, where Utah finally gets over the Kentucky hump and everyone's happy. And instead, the opposite happens.
And what like here's the stream out of that. So what happens to Tubby Smith the way that we revere Tubby Smith if
Oh,
we
I think
beat him?
Tubby Smith. I think if he loses this game, I think a few years later, Kentucky fans run him out of Lexington. I think
Mhm.
he goes to Minnesota, gets run out of there, goes to Texas Tech, gets fired. I think he just like hops around, keeps getting fired, and then ultimately ends up at High Point. That's what I think. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait a second, huh?
Huh, the exact same thing.
Huh, Dana?
Yeah. No, I am glad. Like, that's the one redeeming thing from this is I do like Tubby, and I'm glad Tubby won, and I think it's cool that Tubby Smith got a title before he gets to fondly remember winning a title in his career. But otherwise, yeah, that sucks. If I could undo this and redo it, I would definitely give Utah the title.
Majerus needed a title for sure.
Mhm.
He deserved a title. That's a
Yeah.
good pick. My last two are together, and they're also timeline related. So I'll go
Okay.
for my second one is related to the first one. So my second one is 2008, which is the Kansas Bill Self
You
Mario.
really hate Danny Manning. This is perfect. That you're just crapping all over Danny Manning's titles, right as we're having him on in 5 minutes, Tate, and you're
no. Here it is. I wanted the watershed moment for college basketball to happen. The one and done watershed moment should have happened in 2008, but instead it happened in 2003. But first, in 2008, this is Derrick Rose's year, in my opinion. I thought Memphis and John Calipari, they were the ultimate like middle finger to the Blue Bloods. They're like, this is college basketball. People like Derrick Rose are not going to be going to Duke and North Carolina or Kansas or UCLA. Like they're going to go to Memphis or to wherever Coach Cal is or anyone that is Coach Cal like where's Rick Stansbury? He's going to get these kids and they're going to compete for titles. So I found that fascinating because I thought that it opened the doors up, opened the floodgates of college basketball of, oh my goodness, like anyone could come here with the best player. Michael Beasley in Kansas State would be another example of that, right? And so anyways, Derrick Rose is like, there was all these reports coming to school. It's like, oh, Derrick Rose like didn't take the SAT. Derrick Rose couldn't go to Duke. Like there was all this like bad trash talk about Derrick Rose going into the season. And then he just comes in my opinion, and is just lights out basketball player, like just has a feel for the game where I'm like, oh man, this guy is something else. Like this Memphis team is something else. Coach Calipari, there's something else. And like they're playing a different game. Chris Douglas Roberts and all these guys, like they don't seem like they care about the institution. It's very Fab Five mentality sort of thing. And they go to the title game. They're playing against this Kansas team that is looking for that title to sort of 20 years since 1988. We want to validate who we are as a blue blood. We want to validate the fact that we are Kansas basketball, yada, yada, yada. And we're going against Coach Cal, the outsider, quote unquote, as he likes to call himself at the time. We got Derrick Rose, this freshman, and they missed a bunch of free throws. It was like and then obviously Mario Chalmers hits his amazing shot. We go to overtime. We all know the rest of history. And I don't want to take that away because I love Mario Chalmers, and I think that was a big moment. But if Derrick Rose and Memphis wins the title that year, they're the first one and done team to kind of like come in, make the noise. They win the title. Then the fallout from that is so fascinating to me because from there, Coach Calipari has all the chips, right? He's like, I don't need a blue blood. Like he did his Coach Cal documentary where he was like, I had to go to Kentucky or North Carolina, these places to get co-signed so I could be one of those guys. I think if he wins the title in 08, he doesn't need that anymore. Maybe he stays at Memphis and is just like, I'm gonna blow this thing all the way to the roof. Like I'm gonna have a platoon system at Memphis. Like I'm gonna this is who we are. This is what we do. Blow it out. And that's like sort of the new age of one and done. And it starts there in 2008. I think Derrick Rose and Cal could have done that. I think it saves Cal from going to Kentucky. I think we get I would like John Calipari so much more if he was doing this, like what he was doing at Kentucky in 2012. He was doing it at Memphis. I don't know why, but I would have. And
then Memphis, Memphis is in the ACC this timeline. Like Memphis finds their way into the
Memphis take Pittsburgh's spot in the ACC.
There was something poetic though about all that year Cal getting asked about free throws, and he's like, "Nah, we're good. We're good." And then they lose because they didn't make a free throw. All they had to do was make one free throw, and they couldn't make it. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is kind of funny,
but it's a good pick. I like where you're going with that. I think in a vacuum, the 08 game, Kansas winning was awesome because all those same like. Can they do? I mean, like we said, it's been 20 years since Kansas won. They were kind of just looking for their it was kind of the same thing as Carolina, where they're obviously a great program, but like, man, it's been a weird run. Roy can never get over the hump at Kansas. Then now Bill Self's taken over, and he's had some good teams, but like, does it matter? Like, where would Bill Self be if he doesn't win in 08? You know? Oh my God, he would have definitely gotten fired, right?
Exactly.
If he would have kept having 1 seeds and then never wins a national title, at some point,
Or if he goes back in 2012 and they lose to Kentucky, you know what I mean? Then it's one of those things where it's like, even when we go, like he loses the Cal twice, like he loses the Cal in 08 in Memphis, and he loses again in Kentucky. It's like that's a nightmare.
So in a vacuum, I like that Kansas won, but as far as like the story, the overall arc of college basketball, if Memphis wins that, that's very fascinating to think about. Yeah, that's a good pick. My number two is 2010. The Gordon Hayward shot not going in, and it's not even just the shot. It's Butler. It's playing in Indianapolis Tate. It's having Butler playing down the road from their campus in Indianapolis against the most hated program in college basketball. Like, it could not be scripted anymore better. And not even just that. The head coach of Butler was from Zionsville, Indiana, Brad Stevens. He's from just down the road from where they were playing. The best player on the team is Gordon Hayward. He is from just down the road. It was a very, very local feel. The entire state of Indiana was behind Butler. Even this was back when like people thought Butler was like a fun little story, and they weren't like good enough to really actually challenge IU and Purdue. So like IU and Purdue fans were kind of getting behind them. And now I think you'll find more IU and Purdue fans like kind of hate Butler, but everyone was rallying behind it. It's taking place in Indianapolis. And if you had to pick one program that you would want to see David take down, the Goliath would have to be Duke. It was all set up for, I'm not even just talking about the one shot. Like, obviously that's the one moment that everyone turns to. It's like, man, what if Gordon Hayward's half-court shot would have gone in? Butler was playing him well the whole game. This was not a case of like Butler was down 8 with a minute and a half left and went on a furious run to have a chance at the end. Like, they were playing Duke close the entire game. A couple possessions get flipped a different way, and Butler wins it. And it's the opposite. Duke needs a miracle at the buzzer to beat Butler or something. I don't know. The Duke team too. I think like the fact that it was a very forgettable Duke team, just in the sense of there weren't guys that if you stop someone on the street and ask them to name people on the 2010 Duke team, I think people would struggle to do so. I mean, you and I remember, we remember Nolan Smith and John Shire and Kyle Singler. And do you remember that Lance
Brian Zubek? That's all you need to know. The most moving screens ever set in a Final Four. Brian Zubek.
Do you remember that Lance Thomas was on that team? Because it's weird how people don't mention how Lance Thomas was on that team. I wonder why that is, Tate. I wonder why Lance Thomas doesn't get talked about more as being a very integral part of that 2010 Duke title team. Huh?
No, let's get it back to Zubek.
No, the Duke team was good. Again, this is not a case of me saying that Duke wasn't good enough to like Duke didn't deserve. I'm not doing the Tate thing where it's like Duke played the perfect game and that's the only reason they won. And like you've been doing with Villanova and NC State and some of these others. Duke was a very good team. It was just, man, the stars had a line for Butler to win, and it sucks they didn't.
Let me just say this: if Gordon Hayward had called bank, the ball goes in, they win the title, and it's one of those things where if you're Butler and you're supposed to win on fundamentals, Gordon, you shoot that shot, you yell bank, it goes in. It's the bank before the bang of Jay Wright. Everyone's like, man, Gordon Hayward is clutch. Gordon Hayward is college basketball. He's the Jimmy Chitwood of college basketball. None of it happened.
I don't think anything really changes though. What's interesting about that gets tabbed as like the big what if in college basketball history. But I don't think the timeline of things or the landscape of college basketball really changes at all. I mean, if Gordon makes the shot, Butler wins the title, that's cool. They get to hang a banner. Duke gets a banner taken away from him. But Brad Stevens is still going to the NBA. He's still looking around and saying, like, he probably goes to the NBA after that season versus waiting another season. Gordon was still going to the NBA as well. He's like, I have nothing left to prove here. Duke would have been fine. It's not like Coach K would have been, it's not like that starts the.
Oh, it does. So that was
what changes with Duke?
That was the restart of Duke. They won.
But they already won. Yeah.
No. They won that title in 2010, and then Coach K is like, I will never be able to win with a team that bad again. Let's go fully into this world. Kyrie Irving, you're up next. But
don't you think he does that? If they lose, he's still doing that where he's like,
oh, yeah.
I can't believe I played Brian Zubek all those minutes. I can't let that happen again. I'm doing all the way.
I mean, the fact of the matter is he was already doing that because he thought that team in 2010 had no shot at winning a title. And then they ended up winning a title. So it was funny because Harrison Barnes was the number one player in the country. He committed in the fall of 2009. Carolina won the title, beat everybody by 20 points in the tournament, was by far the best team in the tournament. The fall, they get the number one player in the country who was destined to go to Duke. The next, Grant Hill, he decides to go to North Carolina. everything was looking bad for Duke. It was like all downhill. It was like, oh man, Duke's dead. Like they have nothing. Like who are they leaning on? John Shire, the worst version of JJ Redick. That's great. And then they somehow made this magical run, and like you said, it flipped everything the other way. I don't know how it happened, but I wish Gordon would have made that shot.
Yeah,
that's a good number 2. All right, number 1 for me, 2003 team. Carmelo Anthony comes in. He is obviously top player in the country. Everyone's excited about it, yada, yada, yada. But there was a team in Lawrence, Kansas with a coach by the name of Roy Williams who had guys that have been in the trenches, been through it all. Kirk Heinrich, Nick Collison. And it was one of those years where, like you said, we talked about Kansas. They're trying to get every big program as we got the 21st century. They all had like this clock of like, when do we get our title in the 21st century so we can validate the fact that we are, quote unquote, this dynastic program.
Like how Texas football, I think the big thing was before Vince Young won it, they had a comma in the stadium. They had all their national championships listed. And then after the last one, it had a comma. And it was a big thing about how like the comma signifies that there's going to be another one. And when is that next one coming? When do we finally get a, yeah.
And everyone's freaking out about that because the last one that you got in 1988 was, like we said, it was a magical run. It was a miracle, quote unquote. So people were going crazy. Roy Williams is on the hot seat a little bit in the sense that like there was all these rumors going into the tournament. Oh, is he going to leave? Is he going to take the North Carolina job? There's a rumor that Dean Smith flew out to Lawrence, Kansas to talk to him about the North Carolina job. That's crazy. What's going on? He is doing the opposite of that, which basically like, I hate North Carolina. I will not go to North Carolina. I love Nick Collison. I love Kirk Heinrich, which was a tough time for North Carolina fans because, people had heard all these things as well. And, all this is happening right in the world. And then you got Carmelo Anthony in Syracuse, and you got a team that is hell bent on running a zone. And if there's anything you know about me, I hate zone defenses. I think that they're the most gimmicky, stupid thing you can do in sports, and I don't respect it. I don't think it's a.
Doug Gottlieb, is that you? Is that you, Doug?
Yeah, not a fan of the zone. So, anyways, like that's what Syracuse was. They're a Big East team. It was like the antithesis of how I wanted to play basketball or would run a team that played basketball, right? So all these things are all floating up in my mind as like this perfect moment. And Roy Williams going to that game, he can get his veteran guys a championship, and then he can get them to graduate, and then he can leave on a good note. That's what I'm thinking. Anyways, all this happens. They lose to Syracuse. They lose to a guy that shoots 47% from behind the arc, a one and done guy in Carmelo Anthony. It was a something we hadn't seen in college basketball, and it also, in my mind, sort of changed the game a little bit in the sense that we can run stupid zone and just have the best player on the floor, and we can win a title. Great. Like that wasn't really the recipe in college basketball. And I think that recipe, if it starts 5 years later in 2008 with Derrick Rose, I'm totally fine with that. But I think it started in 2003 as far as people believing that is the setup. It left Roy Williams in a very difficult position to lose in a title game and then basically have to say, screw you to Kansas and then go to North Carolina. They win that game. It's a lot easier of, peel the Band-Aid off for everybody. It's like, we won the title. I got these guys a championship. These are my guys. And now I'm moving on. Everyone's happy. In that sense, that would have been great. And then the fallout is Jim Boeheim never wins a title, and the zone doesn't get any sort of credit ever. And that's like best case scenario for me, if you extrapolate it all.
Well, interestingly, I think if Roy wins in 03, then Kansas doesn't win in 08, because I don't think
exactly they don't win in 08. They don't.
Yeah, Roy doesn't feel guilty about leaving Kansas, and then he doesn't just lay over in the 08 Final Four game. And then, and then 2 days later, wear Kansas sticker on his shirt in the crowd.
With Larry Brown. He and Larry Brown both went for Kansas. They both went to North Carolina.
Cheering for the team that just kicked his ass.
It was terrible.
That's a good pick. All right. I'm with you on that one. I don't hate the just so we're clear, I don't hate Jim Boeheim in the zone as much as you do. So Syracuse fans, don't let me imitate.
Look, it's fine. It worked. I'm saying in my version of this, then it wouldn't have worked, and then everyone could say, man, running a zone is really stupid. Like we've always said before, but this validated the whole process.
My number one is it could only be this. It is 2007. And I might be slightly biased, Tate, but that result is horseshit, and it always will be. The 2007, who played? I forget. It was Florida and somebody. Ohio State. That's right.
The good guys.
So Ohio State, the best team in the country all year. All the experts were saying it. They were saying, has anyone seen a team this dominant from 1 to 13 on the end of the bench? They have the best end of the bench player in the country. They have the best player in the country. We've never seen a team built like this. That's what all the experts were saying all year. And then the Buckeyes in this game, Tate, go 4 for 23 from the three-point line with one of the all-time great shooters in program history buried at the end of the bench. Never gets his chance. Never gets to see the court to show what he could do. I think you get a coach who's not a coward running the show in this game, and maybe, I don't know, when the team is like 4 for 19, he says, "Wow, we can't hit shit," and he turns to the end of the bench. He's like, "Let's just roll the dice a little bit and see. Let's throw this wild card in and see what happens." Thad Matta did not do that, and I'm not putting all the blame on him. I'm just saying maybe a better coach would have, Tate, and that's why this is number one on my list. I also want to say Florida won the title in 06 and brought back all 5 starters, and like for some reason people celebrate that. That is total horseshit. That should be illegal. That is unprecedented in college basketball history, as far as I know. Whether it is or not doesn't matter. I reject reality and accept my own version of reality, and that's the only time it's ever happened. I think there needs to be a rule put in place. When I'm NCAA president, I will put a rule in place. If you win a national title, one of your starters has to go to the NBA. It's only fair. It's not fair to the rest of the country. And Florida cheated, and that's what they did. They brought back all 5 starters, and we all know it to be true, and that's that. So, yeah,
that's perfect. And I will say this: if we take my number one, your number one, we create that reality. Anyways, Roy Williams, he leaves a little bit later. Bill Self stays at Illinois for a couple more years, and then he decides, you know what, I'm going to go to Ohio State, and I'm going to get, this guy Greg Oden, Mike Conley to come, and then he's going to have you at the end of the bench, and he's going to say, you know what, I need a miracle right now, and he's going to look down at you, and he's like, I really need a miracle, Mark, and then you hit the shot. It's Mark's miracle.
Yeah.
In 2007, it's a year ahead, and then 08 Carolina wins, and then they win in 09 again to get the back-to-back there. This is a way better version of college basketball if I could do this, because then you win in 07, Carolina wins 08, 09, Gordon wins in 2010.
Yep.
Kimba wins 2011, and everyone's happy.
And think about where I would be now, Tate. Instead, I'm here in my apartment talking to you about nonsense. And
yes.
Think about what my life could have became instead of this garbage.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes. Damn.
So that's it. So you're
the zone does it again.
Your top 5. You have number 1, 03, number 2, 2008, number 3, 1985, number 4, 1988, number 5, 1983. My 5 is 07, 2010, 1998, 2015, and 2005. Those are our list. That was fun little exercise. Anything else to put a bow on it before you get to Coach Manning?
All the people that did win the national championships, obviously we respect and we think they were great moments. We just wanted different.
Except for Florida in 07. I do not respect
yeah, that's right. I forgot about the 5 guys that came back. We have if you win a title with 5 guys, don't come back. That's what
are you scared of? That's what I'm saying. Like, if you win, like, that's so cowardly too. Like, you win a title, go move on. Like,
move on.
What are you trying to get held back in 8th grade again? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you go, oh, congratulations, you had an undefeated football team in 8th grade. Now you go to your teacher and you're like, hold me back. I don't want to go to high school. Put me back in 8th grade. Go to the NBA. Get out of here. We don't want to see you anymore. It's selfish. It's cowardly.
It's like The Sopranos. Get over it. Find a new show.
Yes.
Find a new show.
All right, that's it. Those are our list. Now let's talk to Danny Manning. Here it is, our interview with coach of Wake Forest, Danny Manning. Joining us now is the head coach of your Wake Forest Demon Deacons. He is a college basketball legend, the 1988 national champion, 1988 player of the year. If a trophy existed in 1988, this man won it. It is Danny Manning. Coach, I want to start here. You are a Division I head basketball coach. That means you are always busy. You are always working. You are always on the road, always doing something. And yet the entire country is basically shut down and everyone's saying stay home. How hard is it for you? What is life like for you these days as a head basketball coach? Give people an idea of what it's like to be a Division I coach during a quarantine when you're not supposed to really be doing anything.
Well, Mark and Tate, the bottom line is this. I'm gonna pull out my cell phone. This is the lifeline right now. Trying to stay connected to our players, trying to stay connected to our recruits that we're reaching out to and the different conference calls and things of that nature. So it is it's a busy time, So, first of all, just hoping that everyone is staying safe and making healthy decisions, and hopefully we can get through this as soon as possible.
Absolutely, coach. And we want to point out, like you said, you're at Wake Forest, you're in Winston-Salem, but a lot of people know you from Kansas and being in Lawrence and that whole experience. But I am from North Carolina, and I like to remind people that you are a Greensboro High School, North Carolina legend as well. So I just wanted to point that out to the people. And can you talk about the difference between maybe Lawrence, Kansas, and Greensboro, North Carolina? Those are both like hallowed grounds of college basketball as far as the cities themselves.
We'll definitely want to give a shout out to Page High School in Greensboro, North Carolina, and also the other high school I went to, Lawrence High in Lawrence, Kansas. You know what? It's a little bit different from the standpoint of in this area. You have 4 major conference schools within an hour and a half of each other, and so that's just a lot of energy circling amongst all those schools in this area. In Lawrence, Kansas is the show. Just to be honest with you, in Lawrence, Kansas, it's all about KU. And so, moving there was different, but it was also a great experience for me, something I'm very thankful for. But this area is as you know, it's a huge hotbed for college basketball, or basketball in general, for that matter.
Oh, we have a lot of younger listeners that might not know your entire story other than just sort of you kind of led Kansas to the 88 title. But I think Tate mentioning that you're from North Carolina, you moved to Kansas. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Your dad got a job coaching with Larry Brown at Kansas, and that kind of was the impetus behind the move. So with that in mind, Coach, was there ever any doubt that you're going to Kansas? Like, what would your dad have done if the whole family moved to Lawrence? You're this big recruit. Like, it seems like a no-brainer, and then you're like, Dad, I think I want to go to Texas or something. Was it always like, did you ever have any choice to go anywhere else, or was Kansas like pretty much a done deal the moment your dad took that job?
I had a choice.
Okay.
There were a couple schools that continued to recruit me when we moved to Kansas, and it was a tough decision. Leaving this area that I grew up in, that I became very fond of, just in regards to the ACC. I mean, that was a league that I grew up watching on Jefferson Pilot back in the day. And for me, Wake Forest was actually the closest school to me because Wake Forest played their home games in the Greensboro Coliseum. And so I had a chance to follow those guys in the paper and on the local news quite a bit. And but to answer your question, I had opportunities to go other places, but there was a strong lean towards Kansas.
Yeah, I imagine so.
I would imagine so. And Coach, I have to ask you, because you leave like you said, those 4 prime power conference schools in North Carolina. You go to Lawrence, Kansas. What was the reaction of a Dean Smith or a Coach Krzyzewski or any of these guys that were there at the time? I mean, were they losing their minds that you were leaving North Carolina? They were that you were, getting outside of the state?
Well, like I said, there are only a few coaches, only a couple actually, that continued to recruit me once we moved. And telling those guys no was tough because they were well-known coaches, and it was a tough decision. But like I said, I'm very thankful and blessed for the decision that was made. Go to Kansas, fortunate enough to win a championship, graduate, meet my wife, start my family. It was home for me every year in the off season for 15 years when I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to play in the NBA. So Kansas has been a great place for me.
So we've talked about that 88 season and the run, especially this time of year. It gets a lot of play about how you first of all, how do you feel about that? That when everyone talks about the 88 tournament run, it's Danny and the Miracles. It's now been, as a guy who I was born in 87, so I obviously don't really remember it. How do your teammates feel about this? How do you feel about this whole the story of the 88 run has now taken a life of its own, where it's like, you guys weren't even good at all. You just got lucky during that run and you played out of your mind for 3 weeks. And that's pretty much what the story's become.
Yeah, that's what the story's become. But going into the season, we were preseason number 1 in a lot of people's polls. And I don't like the name Danny and the Miracles, to be honest with you, just because basketball is a team sport. And my teammates did a great job of doing a lot of different things out there on the court. We all sacrificed. And, we played for a Hall of Fame coach, and Coach Brown, that won a championship at the NBA level and also the collegiate level. And he came up and devised a game plan for us to go out and execute, and we were able to do that. But, we were the best team. I mean, we weren't the most talented. We weren't the most athletic, but we all sacrificed for one another to put ourselves in a situation to have some success. And we're very fortunate for that.
I want to ask you about your coach, Larry Brown. I think, like you said, he's the only coach that won a professional and a college championship, and he has so much basketball knowledge. What was one thing that you learned from Coach Brown at that young age to sort of pass on as you are a coach now?
Well, it's funny. A lot of us guys that are in the coaching now, we find ourselves saying a lot of different things to our teams that Coach Brown said to us.
Mm-hmm.
And he always used to say, "Today's another day to be great, kiddo. Today's another day to be great." And then, when you're in college, you hear it, but you really don't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's something that we share with our guys. Today's another opportunity. Tomorrow's not promised.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make sure that you take advantage of today and use it to the best of your ability. And that's something that we share with our guys on a regular basis. And, just a lot of different things that he threw out to us, in terms of making the game easier for someone else, going out there and trying to find ways to make your teammates better. And these are all things that we continue to echo to the teams that we coach now.
So what is it about college that your entire college, your entire coaching career has been spent in college? As Tate said, the guy you played for, Larry Brown, dipped his toes in the NBA back at college, all that sort of thing. You obviously had a lengthy NBA career. And I imagine you've had opportunities if you wanted to coach in the NBA. You could have started down that road. What is it about college basketball that draws you to it, that makes you want to coach in college versus, doing it in the NBA?
Well, for me, when I retired from the NBA after 15 years of playing, I wanted to provide more stability for my family, just to be honest with you. My son was in 4th grade, hadn't been in the same school for a whole year yet. My daughter was in 6th grade. And I just wanted to make sure that we placed down our roots and gave them a chance to go through junior high and high school before I started even getting into the coaching aspect of it. And so for me, that was a big part of it. And also I got a great opportunity to go work for Bill Self back at Kansas. Mm-hmm. He created a position for me to come onto the staff, gave me an opportunity to learn the business, and I'm very fortunate for that. And then once my kids got out of high school, that's when I started looking for different opportunities to become a head coach. But to answer your question, I wanted to provide my family more stability throughout my children's school years.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach, that you went back in 2003, right, to join the staff, or 2004 with Coach Self, and then you were there all the way up into the 2008 title game. Obviously, you talked about the experience you got and what you learned. Like, what was that initial position that Coach Self created for you, and then what was that growth process like to be able to become an assistant coach, and then obviously be able to become a head coach at Tulsa, a few years down the road?
Well, for me, it was director of student athlete development, and it just gave me a chance to see the business up close and personal. From there, kind of went to the operations, director of operations area, and then into an assistant coach's role. And very thankful for that, because I got a chance to see it from the ground level up. I got a chance to see everything that goes into it, from what the managers are doing on a daily basis all the way up through the head coach. And so for me, that experience has been invaluable, because I have an idea of what everybody's going through in my program.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trend in college basketball now. I'm sure you're aware that a lot of programs are hiring great players. Most of them are alums, like Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, say Penny Hardaway at Memphis. And I feel like there might be a stigma amongst fans of guys who were great players might not necessarily be great coaches. And there's this idea of, like, it's almost like the better the player you were, like you have this aura around you as a player, that it's hard to be taken seriously as a coach. Because, I mean, we're guilty of it, Coach. Like, you came on our show and all we wanted to talk to you was about the Kansas, your time at Kansas and all that sort of stuff, because that's what we're fascinated by. Do you feel that as a coach, of like a pressure to kind of shed this former life of being an NBA player, of being a legend at Kansas, and now take me seriously as a head coach? Or am I making too much of this?
To me, I think you're making too much of it, because at the end of the day, 95% of the kids playing college basketball aren't going to play in the NBA. They're going to need their degrees. They're going to need their degrees to function in life. And if you're fortunate enough to get to the NBA, there's only going to be a handful of guys that make enough money where they're not going to have to do anything when they get done. And so for me and all the other guys that are coaching and are former players, we understand this. We know how hard it is to be a professional player in the NBA. We know what it takes. We understand that. And a lot of times in the big picture, a lot of people don't get that. And so for us as coaches, we want to win games. We want to be successful in college, no question about it, because there's a huge competitive drive for all of us. But we also know that we got to help prepare young people for life after basketball because the ball is going to stop bouncing sooner than later.
And coach, one example of that, I mean, one of the guys that I looked to in your program, and he came up with, the Dennis Smith Juniors and some of those guys that were able to go straight to the pros, after 1 year in college basketball. Well, that's Brandon Childress. And obviously he's the son of Randolph, who's on staff with you, but he spends 4 years at Wake Forest. And like I said, he came up with the Harry Giles of the world, and he saw all those guys be the one and done type talents, but he hunkered down at Wake Forest, spent 4 years, had a great career. He had the big, double overtime win over Duke this year at home. That was a big moment. So what is it like to have a 4-year guy like Brandon to point to and say, this is a Wake Forest basketball player?
Well, I think for me, when I was in college, that's what we all were. We were all 4-year guys. You know what I mean? From that aspect, I think times have changed without question. And for us, the growth of Brandon is kind of what college is all about. We came in as a freshman, and he got a chance to get on the court a little bit. Sophomore year, got a little bit bigger taste. Junior year, he's running the show. Senior year, he's running the show. So that's kind of the evolution and growth when guys come in and continue to stack years and get better and better. We're in an era now of instant gratification, instant everything, and that doesn't always work. And so for us to be able to work with somebody day in and day out for 4 years, help them build their skills, help them get prepared for all the different curveballs that life's going to throw them. That's the most important thing at the end of the day. I think Brandon's experience or any 4-year player's experience will help prepare him for whatever walk of life he chooses.
You mentioned we're in an era of instant gratification. If you were coming up now and you were Danny Manning, the player, graduating high school in 2020, how different is recruiting now versus how it was back then? I know obviously we talked about Dad being on Kansas staff kind of probably made your recruitment even back then a little different than a typical player in the early 80s. But what's the biggest difference? Can you even limit it to one of recruiting guys as being on the coaching side of things now versus being a player coming up?
I think social media is the biggest difference. Guys went to the gym, worked out, dedicated like they are now. I just think the amount of attention that the cell phone brings and the social devices bring just changes the game, just to be honest with you. And for us as coaches, it's something that we definitely use. It's something that we use to vet the process in terms of finding out about a lot of individuals, because there are a lot of guys that you can go on their social media and look at and realize that maybe this isn't such a great fit, or maybe it is a great fit.
Coach, you mentioned social media as a thing that can be good or bad with recruiting. I'm curious because I think we all know how it could go bad. I know how we know how social media could be bad. What could possibly be good out of social media? How could you look at a high school kid social media profile and something's good there?
Well, I mean, you're watching to see what they're following, what they're liking, things of that nature. Those can throw some caution in the wind with some of the likes that you see on some of the social media following that some of these guys have. And a lot of it too is a lot of them just don't know any better, just to be honest with you. It's a song that they like, or it's a movie that they like, or something along those lines. So, a lot of it is, for us, when our guys come in, we take their social media and we run through all of it, and we try to show them all the red flags. Hey, if you like this, it has this type of connotation to it, or you didn't like this. So, those are the types of things that we try to do to educate our guys. But the majority of the guys that walking in the door, they have to clean up their social media just because of the things that they follow in life.
Yeah, it Coach, is a red flag is like, say you find a guy, you're like, this is like, let's say it's Jalen Horde, however many years ago, and you're like 3 years ago, you're like, Jalen Horde's a guy we want to bring here, we like him, and then you look at his Instagram, and every single day he's like putting workout videos up. Is that a red flag where you're like, how's this guy already have all these workout videos up? Is he actually working out, or is that something you like?
Well, you like to see anytime any body of work they're going to put out there. A lot of it is you want it to be a continuous workout. You don't want it to be clipped out and just show all the makes. You know what I mean? Like, hey, hold on, I know you missed a couple shots. You were in the gym for an hour and a half. You didn't miss any shots. What's going on with that? So that's the biggest thing, is making sure that it's a clean run.
Yeah, that's crazy. I got to ask you before we let you go. You had a legendary Clippers career. You were like the OG LA Clipper. Is any part of you upset that it's cool to play for the Clippers now? Because of you, what I'm saying is like you kind of helped build the Clippers, and then Elton Brand comes along. They have like the era in the early 2000s. Now all of a sudden it's cool to play for the Clippers. There are arguments about it. Are the Clippers cooler than the Lakers? Does any part of that upset you as a guy who had to spend so many years in LA on the uncool Clippers?
Not at all. You know, I got a chance to play in LA. I got a chance to play in the NBA. And for me, growing up, that was a goal. So very fortunate and blessed to get to that level. And, you know, when you get to the NBA, there are a lot of different things that go through your mind. But one of the biggest things is, hey, I want to show people day in and day out I belong in this league. I want to show people day in and day out I can compete at a high level. So that's your thought process when you're walking in the door and trying to help your team win and be successful. And, you know, we had some teams there that, you know, made some playoff runs and had a lot of fun. But, you know, for me, it was a great experience to go to LA as a 21-year-old kid with a little money in my pocket. And hey, I enjoyed it.
Well, that's good, Coach. We're glad.
LA was slightly different than Lawrence, Kansas, and Greensboro, North Carolina. Is that what you're saying?
Just a little. Few more restaurants.
Yeah, a few more restaurants. Coach, you talked about like proving day to day in the NBA that you belong. One of those guys that's been able to do that is John Collins, who was at Wake Forest with you. Obviously, I call him John the Baptist, and I think he's probably one of the most underrated guys that we've seen in the league that's come out in the past few years. When you had the conversation with him, you know, before he decided to make the leap to the NBA, did you have that same, you know, you got to prove day to day, or did you expect him to take the leap when he did? Like, what was that conversation like? Because you've been there before with these guys.
Well, for John, when he walked in the door, he was an extremely hard worker for us, and he put in extra work. He put in the time, and he did a lot of different things to put himself in that situation. You know, the one thing for us, we didn't need him to shoot long jump shots. We didn't need him to shoot threes when he's with us. So he didn't shoot a lot. We have other guys to do that. He's expanded his range now professionally. He's shooting threes now, but that's where the game is going for all big guys, being able to step out on the floor and stretch the defense. But John's a great kid. He's an extremely hard worker, and I'm very happy and proud of his success. But it's not surprising me because he puts in the time, he puts in the effort, and he's very dedicated.
Coach, this is my final question I have for you. So you play for Larry Brown. You said Bill Self kind of helped you get your start in coaching, bringing you onto that Kansas staff. You also played in Phoenix for Danny Ainge for a few years. If you had to be quarantined with one of those three guys for a month, who are you picking and why? If you have to spend a month straight in the same house with one of those three.
Bill Self.
Okay. That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
But the reason, hold on now. Let me say this too now. Bill and I played against each other in college. His senior year was my freshman year, and he was also a graduate assistant at Kansas. And so, you know, we go way back. And, you know, if that was going to be my roommate during this quarantine, he'd probably be the guy right now.
What would be the one thing that would make everything unravel where you guys would be at each other's throats? What would be
I don't know if anything will unravel. I mean, as long as there's a little space in the house, we'll be okay.
Okay.
There you go. We appreciate you coming on, Coach. We want to say this on the record: Wake the nation. We want Wake Forest to come back. We are big proponents of the Big Four here at this program. We want Wake Forest versus Duke to be a rivalry. We want Wake Forest versus North Carolina, Wake Forest versus State, all that to kind of pop up. So
yeah. How did that work when you guys beat Duke this year? Did Coach K try to break into your locker room to give a pep talk to your players? How does that work?
Coach K's great. I've known Coach K for quite some time. He was coaching at Duke when I was still in college playing. Every time we cross paths, you know, it's always a great conversation. And, you know, what he's brought to the game, how he's elevated the game in college, especially in our league and really in our state, in our area. So, you know, nothing but respect for Coach K.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, Coach. Continued success at Wake Forest. Stay safe out there. Thank you so much for making some time for us.
Thanks a lot, guys. You guys be safe as well.
All right. Take care.
Hey, Coach.
For the best access, perspective, and personalities in all of sports, follow us at Fox Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.